Well, welcome to Sessions from the Edge. And I see one of my previous guests, Paddy Wallen, is online as well. And looking at the surname, possibly Luke Peterson, is that one of your family? That's one of your sons. Okay, there we go. Busted.
Yes. Hey, Luke.
Lovely. Well, welcome to Sessions from the Edge. And we're now starting off with season 2. This is the first interview for 2026. And this is a space for conversations with people who are living where certainty has fallen away and life has had to be renegotiated, not fixed. Today's conversation is with writer Jenny Peterson, who writes on Substack, and her title is Dying to Live. Jenny writes with an unusual clarity about living with serious illness, not by turning it into a lesson or a fight or an inspirational story, but by staying close to what life actually feels like when you're still here and still living. This isn't a conversation about beating anything. It's about how life continues, how meaning shifts, and what it looks like to choose presence when the future is uncertain. So, Jenny, I'm really, really grateful that you're here today and opening the year for 2026. What a fantastic way to start.
Thank you so much, Paul. It's lovely to be here. And I think that might be the best introduction I've ever had. That was lovely.
Oh, wow.
But
There we go. Thank you for that.
when you talk about how to live when certainty falls away, because that's really what it's all about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we'll talk about that moment of diagnosis because I've had one myself. And similarly, mine is incurable and so on. But anyway, when you sit down to write Dying to Live, what kind of day are you usually writing from?
Well, I somebody asked me recently, how do you keep coming up with things to write about, after a year? And I think, well, there's never a lack of content or material because I basically wake up every day and I think, what's floating up for me today? What are the things I'm dealing with? What's something that's a challenge for me today? Because I live from the place and work from the place that if I'm experiencing something, other people are experiencing it too. So I just write about literally what's going on for me that day. The only thing I plan ahead is my weekly newsletter. And that's even kind of loosely planned ahead. I don't have a spreadsheet. I don't do anything like that. I like to write very organically, what's truly coming up for me, because that's going to be truly coming up for other people as well.
And what does truly come up for you? Say, for instance, your weekly newsletter.
Mhm.
What sort of things come across your mind at the time?
The things that I write about are, I'm going to back up here. When I was first diagnosed with breast cancer 13 years ago, and I remember thinking, I went online, I was a writer at that time as well, and I remember thinking, all the things that I'm seeing about people writing about living with cancer usually fall into one of two camps. And I wasn't comfortable with either one of them, Paul. One is going to be like this toxic positivity, to use kind of a, current, phrase where, oh, I'm fine. Everything's fine. I'm going to be fine. Don't worry about me. I'm going to kick this out. Everything's great, and sure, I've have days like that. But then the other part of it is I saw a lot of writing that was very doom and gloomy, very I'm dying. I don't know how much longer I have to live. Well, who wants to read that? I don't want to
Mm.
tap into that energy every day. So my goal every day is to straddle those two. To My goal is to look at the reality, to I'm not in avoidance. I know what my diagnosis is. Um but I don't need to build a house around it. I don't need to talk about it all the time. I don't need to have that be my life. In fact, my oncologist told me when I was first diagnosed 13 years ago, he said, "Don't let cancer be your whole life." And I've really taken that to heart. So that's what I write about is, you know, don't be in denial. That's not going to serve you. It doesn't serve me. But so name the difficulties, understand what they are to the best of your ability, but then really try to create a life that you feel good about, that you are where you have some things that you're looking forward to, where you want to get out of bed in the morning, where things matter to you, where you have some purpose. That's important for everybody, but particularly when you've been diagnosed with something that's been deemed incurable, So that's kind of what I do every day.
And it also sounds like, you've taken a perspective that things have to be lived differently, but still living. I mean, the dying to live bit, it really, intrigues me, and it got my attention when I first started watching your Substack.
Well, funny enough, I actually had a dream about that title. I know that sounds a little weird, even to me saying that out loud. I have a very active dream.
Oh,
I remember thinking, this is about a year ago. It was February of last year. I was thinking, I really need to start writing about this because I was diagnosed, I don't know, 8 months prior, and I hadn't said anything publicly about it.
mm,
Uh, I was just trying to get my bearings in my new world. And I don't, I'm not a person that announces things publicly right off the bat. I really have to process things before I divulged to the public. And so I thought, I think it's time to start writing about this. I'm doing it. I'm, mentally, emotionally, I'm doing okay now. And I thought, I'm going to start writing on Substack. And I think I'm going to start a podcast, which I haven't done, but I'm going to. that's the
yeah,
that's next month's goal, actually. Um, and I thought, I wonder what I should call it. And I just went to sleep, and I had this dream that it was called Jenny's Dying to Live. And I woke up thinking, that's an awesome name. I'm going to
it
call
is.
it that. So, because it says so much, but it's also a little bit cheeky, which is kind of how I like to live. I always want to remember a sense of humor and kind of a zest for life, and that fullness of life where you're not just kind of being doom and gloom. Like that just doesn't work for me. It just does not work for me.
No, but unfortunately, it doesn't work for a lot of people, but a lot of people use it as a crutch. I was talking with, a paramedic. You call them paramedics in the US, and they were saying to me when they've heard about the book and so forth that I wrote, etc. They were saying, "Oh, I wish you could come and sit in my ambulance because I spend most of my life dealing with people who just want a diagnosis. They just want to be sick. They want to go to hospital. They want all that, the trappings that come with being chronically ill, and the worse the better. I mean, incurable. Oh, fantastic. Which is a load of rubbish. And she's just that's what she's dealing with all the time, and it's really refreshing, and I've got others around me in terms of guests and so forth who have similar opinions. For instance, I had a prostate cancer doctor recently who is has stage 4 prostate cancer as well, and similar to you, he's dying to live as well, and I think that's really really important.
Well,
And s
I was thinking as you were talking, Paul, that whatever someone's diagnosis is, it could be stage 4 cancer, it could be ADHD, it could be some other, chronic pain, endometriosis, whatever. It's really easy for us to live through those labels and to say, I can't do XYZ because, I've got ADHD. I can't do XYZ because I have stage 4 cancer. And it is a little bit of, I'm going to call this out, a little bit of hiding behind that diagnosis and live
mm,
your identity. And that is not who I am. I'm not stage 4 cancer. It's just something I've been diagnosed with. That's not who I am.
yeah, and that's very clear. That's very clear in your Substack, which is fantastic.
I'm really, really, really very firm on that. So that's why I don't use labels like cancer survivor. I'm not a cancer survivor. And somebody could say, well, no, you're not because you have stage 4 cancer. But then before I had stage 4 cancer, I still didn't like that title, cancer survivor, and I actually scrubbed it from my online bios and resumes everywhere I could find it because I did do the cancer survivor thing for a while, and then I thought, no, that's not who I am. It's
No.
something I was diagnosed with. That's all it is.
That's exactly right. I mean, it's just something you're diagnosed with, and the phrase that I've come up with for people like us is titans. Coming from the old Greek expression of a titan. Titans are both female and male. They're both. There's no gender specificity there, but yeah, we're there to experience life, to enjoy life, and yes, we have a condition, but it's not what we are or
Yeah,
not who we are.
yeah.
It's just something we gotta work with, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I told my oncologist when I was re-diagnosed stage 4 in June of 2024. I said, I accept this diagnosis, but I do not accept the prognosis. That
No.
nothing to do with me. That's just a collection of averages. Doesn't have anything to do with me or my body. Um, I there have been other people that have been cured from stage 4 cancer. There's no reason to believe that I can't be one of those people. I
Mhm.
fully be one of those people. And I literally had him write it in my chart in front of my eyeballs, Paul. I said, I don't want anybody here to tell me that I'm not capable of healing from this. If you don't believe it, you can that's okay. That's your business what you believe but you can keep that to yourself. I don't ever want somebody to tell me what I'm capable of or what my
Yeah.
body of because that's too limiting for me. It just is. I accept the diagnosis, not the prognosis.
Yeah, exactly. But life does have to be lived differently, and you in 2024 or not too long ago anyway, you had a second diagnosis
Yeah.
that took it a little bit further. What was that? And what are the limitations there, I suppose?
So I was originally diagnosed with breast cancer stage 2 in 2012. And I remember my doctor at the time telling me, but the good news is you don't die from this.
No.
And now, of course, I know, well, nobody dies from stage 2 cancer. Nobody does. It's stage 4. So I was fine all those years. I went through, all my treatment and everything. And it's actually in 2023, I started having pretty massive back problems. But as you can imagine, I'm always under a doctor's care. People, they follow me very closely. Nothing showed up in any image imaging that I did. Nothing. Everything was fine. And it just got worse and worse and worse. In 2024, I started having this uh, end of the winter into the spring. I started having massive back spasms, had an MRI, had x-rays. They said everything was clear. I have a hard time believing that, when I've got tumors in my spine. But that's what it is, that the breast cancer had migrated to my spine. And because that went undetected, my spine broke. My back broke in two places in May of 2024, and that went undiagnosed for 3 additional weeks. So I was
2 places undiagnosed.
diagnosed, I was almost crawling into the doctor's office, almost screaming in pain, and I've got quite a high pain threshold, and nobody could figure out what was going on, and to this day, I'm like, "Why didn't you do more imaging?" I don't know. If I could do it over again, I would have demanded more imaging, but I could barely speak literally around that time because the pain was so excruciating. So my husband got me in for a second opinion, thank God, with my primary care doctor, and she's just primary care doctor. She's not like trained in something specific, and she was like, "Man, this does not sound right to me." So she told my husband, "If if if this gets worse, if Jenny can't like if she collapses or the pain gets worse, or get this, if you can't go to the bathroom, because that is a sign of extreme nerve damage, when your body cannot literally relax to go to the bathroom.
Mm.
Um, Said you need to call me immediately, and we're going to get her into the hospital, like to the ER. And all of those things happened 24 hours later. Collapsed,
Wow.
not go to the bathroom. So it was immediately into the emergency room where they diagnosed me that evening. And they said, we have to do a biopsy when we get in to stabilize your back, but we have to stabilize you overall first before we can do surgery. So it was quite dramatic. And yeah, so I got diagnosed in June of 2024 with stage 4 metastatic breast cancer to the spine. And
So you could have surrendered to that, but you haven't.
no, I didn't. I'm not gonna lie, I was very afraid at first, and probably the worst thing for me was having to call my sons that evening when I got my diagnosis.
That is the hardest. I had exactly the same thing with
First that
prostate cancer 10 years ago, and then I finished all that and went through that. But then, a couple of years ago, severe heart disease. And I mean, I've got an extreme version, I won't go into it, but I've got an extreme version of heart disease.
yeah,
And it's the hardest thing to talk to your daughters or your wife. Or my wife was involved in the consult, so she knew exactly what was going on. But
yeah,
telling our daughters was really hard.
yeah, I was thinking, how am I gonna call I mean, I call them my kids, of course they're my kids, they're 32 and 34, but,
Mine are 32 and 30, yeah.
with my children, I don't wanna call them and go, "I'm about ready to tell you something that's gonna change your life." Nobody wants to do that with their kids, so that was actually the
Mm,
worst for me. Um,
yeah.
but I was able to tell them it's not a death sentence. A lot of times like, say if the cancer had gone to my liver, that's a little bit of a different story. Your liver can only
Yeah.
sustain so much of an onslaught, with treatment. Um, Even though I don't accept a specific prognosis, I was told I could have 10 plus years, with
Mm,
the treatment that we have. So I was at least able to tell boys that this is not like a death sentence.
mm,
Um, so that was better. But, pretty quickly, I had a good buddy of mine who kind of serves as a mentor to me. Um, and he called me about a month after my diagnosis, spent about an hour on the phone with me, and he gave me a list of things to read, gave me some things to watch on TV, and then he asked me a question that changed everything for me. He said, "Jenny, when you were first diagnosed, what did you make it mean?" And I had to think about that, and I thought, well, immediately I made it mean I'm screwed. I, I'm I'm a dead man walking,
yeah,
and
yeah.
And he said, "Okay, that was your first thought." He said, "What are you thinking now?" And I said, "I'm okay. I think I'm okay. Um, I'm gonna be all right." And so that was a lesson to me. Like when I have difficult feelings that come up, because I'm a human being, I
Mm,
I have my hard times. I have my hard days where I get these dark thoughts in my head. And then I remind myself, what am I making this mean? It doesn't need to mean anything other than the meaning that I attribute to it. And I think that's a great, great way to live daily, whether you have an incurable disease or not. What am I making this mean? Doesn't need to
mm,
mean anything, horrific. It means I've got to, my life is different. Yeah, for sure. I've got some mobility issues. I'm in treatment for the rest of my life unless I choose otherwise. Um, Side effects are pretty gruesome. I'm not gonna lie about that. So my life is not the same as it was before, but it doesn't mean that my life is bad. It doesn't mean that my life lacks purpose. It doesn't mean that my life isn't as good as it was before. It doesn't mean any of that. Just it is different though.
So with such a diagnosis, how do you wake up in the morning and prioritize or figure out what you're going to do? Do you just go with the flow? Do you what's a usual mental perspective for you to start the day going forward?
I try to wake up with a sense of curiosity every day, and that's been serving me very well. Curiosity in terms of I check in with my body. How's my body feeling today? How's my back feeling? What's going on with my, I can have a lot of GI issues with treatment.
Yeah,
What's going on with that? So I try to approach all of this with a sense of curiosity rather than gritting my teeth and going, "Oh God, that's happening again. Oh God, that's happening again."
yeah,
I really don't want to have a day where I have XYZ. Once I start thinking like that, the day's been written for me then. Then
yeah.
then now I'm gritting my teeth through the whole day rather than approaching my life from the moment I open my eyes in the morning with curiosity. Wonder what today's going to bring. Wonder what my body's up to today. Wonder wonder how I'm going to handle that. Wonder what the next thing will be. I don't
Mm-mm.
I mean, it's just a little bit of an exercise in being open, being, open to life unfolding, and that's daily, sometimes minute by minute.
Mm.
Uh, Open to some possibilities, some opportunities, maybe an opportunity to look at something in a different way, you know? But curiosity has been the best thing for me. Wonder what today's gonna be. Wonder how I'm gonna handle it.
And it also seems to me that you're also unapologetic about pleasure, enjoying life as well.
Oh,
Like it's
yeah, that's actually very important to me. I've been around people who have been as ill as I have been, and I'm just gonna say it for how it is, how I look at it. They're no fun to be around, and I'm not saying you have to be fun all the time.
no,
That's
exactly.
also disingenuous
Yep.
because sometimes I don't feel fun, and the whole point of life isn't fun. The point for me of life is being genuine and looking around for beauty and for joy. I think happiness is a little hippy yippy skippy for me, that word. I joy has a little bit of a more of a depth to it,
Yeah.
but I look for purpose. I look for beauty. Beauty can be kind of poignant. It can be a little bittersweet, and it
Yeah.
can also be just amazing, like over the top. So I look for those things. And when I can't find them, if it's not really obvious, I create it. I try to create it. I go in watercolor. I write. I pick up the phone and call a friend, which is actually not very common for me because I hate talking on the phone. Really don't phone. Everybody that knows me knows I don't like talking on the phone. But you have to well, you don't have to do anything that you don't want to do. Everybody gets to choose what they want their life to be. I know how I want to feel every day. I want to look my life square in the eye. I want to be in tune to what my reality is, and I want to enjoy it. I want to enjoy my life. And sometimes I don't enjoy a particular side effect. I'm not going to say I always enjoy that. That's
Yeah.
that sounds a little silly. I mean, that's just
Yeah.
dumb.
Yeah.
But I want to overall have some enjoyment in my life, to always remember to laugh, to not take things so seriously, to be somebody that other people would like to be around. It's it's a thing I straddle that reality every day. I really do.
Mhm. You mentioned purpose earlier. What is purpose for you? Like in terms of what are the things that are purposeful for you?
Well, before the stage 4 diagnosis, I never would have said that my purpose is my work, because I've never really defined myself by what I do for a living. But it's funny when you can't do it for a time being, how much we all really identify with our work. And I think that is a very kind of a Western mentality, I would say,
Mm.
that we do tend to be workaholics, and we do tend to identify with what we do instead of who we are. So I really have tried to make that shift. It's not what I do, it's who I am, and who I am in bringing that person to my work. So my purpose is not what I do. It's not that I'm a writer. My purpose is, I feel that the way I look at it is, I'm a spiritual person, or I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. And what
Mm.
is that mean day to day? I know that sounds a little deep, but that's the place I work from. Who am I? What is my identity? How do I think of myself as a person, as a human being? And then how am I expressing that in the world? What am I bringing from this experience of having been diagnosed with this? What am I bringing now into the world? What energy am I bringing with me? How am I showing up in the world? That's my purpose. And that is expressed through my writing. My writing is not my purpose.
Mm.
A little bit of a distinction there, but if my
Well,
write
writing's a tool. Writing's a tool, but
right,
your purpose. You mentioned spirituality there. What's spirituality for you?
well, I was I was raised as a Lutheran pastor's daughter. My
Oh,
first
okay.
was a Lutheran pastor, and I have a master's degree in theology, but I no longer identify as being Christian.
Ah,
So,
that's
quite the trek with religion and spirituality. I kind of think of myself as
A master's in theology, and
I
you're
do
okay.
master's degree in theology and a
I'm
my
for the record, I'm agnostic, so
yeah, I would say I am if you force me to pick a spirituality and name things, I really don't like labels, but,
no.
uh, I would say pantheism, which is like I see the divine in everything.
Well, I'm
N
I'm not
not
actually referring to ritual or religion because, my wife was raised a Muslim, but she doesn't know the first thing about Islam. In fact, when we go to the Middle East and visit relatives, she actually, she actually gets in trouble for that.
oh, no.
And I was born a Christian, but I have no idea what that's about. No, it's spirituality is more about what makes you tick, what actually drives you and, gets you enlivened and living life
Yeah.
is my perspective on spirituality, yeah.
Yes. There is a difference between religion and spirituality. So I religion, I'm not really interested in that. I don't attend services anywhere. I'm not a part of a group anywhere. I don't like prescriptions or sets of rules that tell me what I have to do in order to be acceptable or loved or valued. That those don't hold meaning for me anymore.
No,
So I feel that what's the most important thing is that I I live from the most genuine place I can live from, which is love and service. Um, I try to bring the best energy that I can to the world around me, to the people that I come into contact with. I'm not a perfect person. Nobody is. Um, I just try to walk through the world with good energy and with good intentions for the people around me. And I think that makes a difference in my relationships with people, even just that I come into contact briefly with on Substack. That's really important to me. Um, I don't have this big goal to be a perfect person or to be, this big, you know, I don't know, virtuous, religious person. That was me in my old life. That just doesn't
yeah,
resonate anymore. It just doesn't. So I try to be somebody that, makes the world a better place. That's that's
well,
that's what I try to do. It really boils down to that. It really does.
we need a lot of that at the moment, and talking about better places, there's been some great comments coming in. Patty Wallen, for instance, a little earlier said, "This is a beautiful question. What am I making this mean?" So she says, "Thank you, Jenny." And, here's
Well,
Cliff
yeah,
Gallipo.
that's
Yeah.
that's one of my
Is
friends
it
from high school.
oh, there you go. So Cliff here says, "I'm so very lucky to have you in my life, Jenny. You continue to inspire me and you help me find my compass. Love you dearly, my friend." Big hug, kiss thing. And here's one. I love these sort of comments as well. Jen Annette, "This is so timely and so very welcome for me right now. Thank you." And Veronica, simple one-liner, "Word." So so there's some real conversation going on here, and that's what it's about, That's how we enjoy life, isn't it? Sharing it with others.
Yeah.
And what sort of emotional boundaries do you have around all of this between like, for instance, when I was first diagnosed with severe heart disease, so it sort of crashed me. I was within months of dying and so forth, so I really had to pull the anchors on, and I actually, explored with my psychologist, I actually explored a split personality, certain aspects of that to try and compartmentalize the things that I just couldn't deal with at the time. And then once the easy stuff was worked out, the low-hanging fruit, then we moved into that and stripped that back and opened it up. So how do you, put an emotional boundary around, an incurable condition, irreversible, incurable, all those sort of things, and then still enjoy life, still give it purpose?
So there are a few things that I do, and my husband and I actually were just talking about this today. I said, we really don't talk about cancer in this household, and it's not because we're in avoidance. It's just like that's not our lives.
Mm,
It's something that I have to deal with. The fallout from a broken back is actually more. Um, more serious to me than the side effects from cancer treatment, that because I came within hours of being paralyzed, because the nerve damage in my legs and feet was that severe. Yeah, I couldn't stand up on my own. And so that actually is more prevalent in my day-to-day life today. But I've told the people around me from the very beginning, I said, no sympathy, no pity, no pity. And because I was, in my bed and waking up from a nap, and I heard some family members in the kitchen, and I couldn't hear exactly what they were saying, but I could hear the tone, and I could heard "Psst, psst, psst, Jenny," and "Psst, psst, psst, Jenny," and I got up, and I had to use a walker, and I went, toddled out into the kitchen, and I said, "I don't wanna hear this anymore. I don't wanna hear the hushed tones as though I'm half dead. I don't wanna hear 'poor Jenny.' That's a big no-no. Do not say 'poor Jenny' to me. I don't think 'poor me.' So I
No.
don't
It's not avoidance, is it? I mean, some people say, "Oh, you're avoiding things." No, it's not
it's
avoidance at
not
all, is
avoid
it?
at all. No, I cannot overstate this. I fully understand what this diagnosis
Mm,
is. Accepted
100%.
it has changed my life, but I don't pity myself. In some ways, I feel like I'm more connected to what I call the divine or my source than I was before. Uh, uh, an incurable, I'll put that in air quotes, an incurable disease or diagnosis will change the way you think about timelines. It will.
Mm,
I actually think that's quite a gift, to live my life every day, not as though I'm going to live forever, because none of us are going to live forever. Forever, we're all in a stage of dying. I'm just a little bit more aware of it. You're just a little
mm,
aware of it, and I do
mm,
think that that is a gift. Um,
absolutely.
so no pity, no poor Jenny. I don't talk about this diagnosis all the time. I don't talk about how, oh, my stomach hurts, or I have this is going wrong and that's going wrong. I don't want to be around that every day. Who's going to want to be around that? So I just deal with my stuff. I ask for help when I need it. If I'm having a really bad day, of course, I'm going to unload on my husband or, the people closest to me because they're there to support me. Um, but I try really, really hard to not complain. Venting is one thing, complaining is quite another. Complaining is just not going to work. You're just doubling down on everything that's going wrong, everything that you're feeling bad about, and it makes me feel worse. So, and I'm not into feeling worse than I already am on some days. So, no pity, no complaining, vent if I need to, do what I need to do to feel better. I know where to go for support, but but I have to be responsible for the way I feel every day. If I'm not feeling good emotionally, that's my job to change that. Only
Mm,
change that. No, people around me can support me in helping me to feel the best I can, but really it's up to me to make that decision that I'm not going to be this depressive, doom and gloom, complaining person talking about my medications every day and what my bathroom habits are and like, good God, who wants to I don't
yeah,
want to
exactly.
day. Why would I want to sit around and talk about it? It's just if I need help though, I will ask for help. I will. I'm not a big believer in just, biting your lip and not asking for help. We all need help and I some days I really need some help.
And here Luke was saying, this is your son Luke, he was saying in some ways it's a great opportunity. So as a family, can you explain that a little bit further maybe, even though it's his comment?
Um we haven't shied away as a family about talking about what the diagnosis means. And especially in the early days, I remember saying to and actually it was to Luke. Luke was visiting that weekend and I said, I really want to live as fully as possible. And when it comes my time, I want to have a good death. And that was hard, probably hard for Luke to hear that, and for Max, my older son. But that is actually true. I've seen people who have not lived well, and I've seen people have what I would consider a bad death. And a bad death is you get to the end of your life and you have regrets and you haven't lived as fully as you might have liked, and you wish you could have done some things differently, I don't
mm,
want to point in my life and have those thoughts and feelings. So I want to have a good when that time comes, I my intention is to be on this earth for a good long time yet, and every
mm,
indication right now says that that's going to be my reality. But when my time comes, I want to have a good death. I want to say I did this. I did this, and it's okay. And it's
mm,
okay for me to go now, and it's an okay thing, you know?
mm. It's and that sort of comment is backed up here by the Cottywomple Pilgrim. That's an interesting name for a such thing. Um, Interested to know what the Cottywomple is. But anyway, I love that you're highlighting the gift of a limited prognosis. As a hospice nurse, I have explained that to patients and family, and it's very challenging to thread the needle well, and not everyone is ready to hear it. And that's true. It is hard. Sometimes not everybody is ready to hear it either. But you can't let your life be controlled by what others are thinking and doing about your prognosis. It's your prognosis, it's your life, and it's what you make of it. Would you say?
Yes. Yes. I with the people that I'm very close to, like for example, let's say my husband Brett, I have asked him a few times here and there, what's the hardest thing about this for you? Because he's the next person out from me.
Mm,
And
mm,
he doesn't have to caretake me any longer, but he did have to for quite some time after my surgery, as as did several family members and a couple of friends. But what is this like for you? What's your experience of this like? What's your worst fear? I think those are important conversations to have and to not shy away from that.
mm.
Again, not something you want to focus your whole life around, and every day doesn't need to be heavy conversations. But those conversations, when they feel organic and they come up, don't shy away from them, because they
No.
can really draw you much closer to the people that you love. Like, it's okay to talk about your fears around me. It's okay to say, I'm really afraid. I don't want to lose you. That's
Mm,
a hard thing to say. It can be a little hard to hear, but it's also very bonding because it's very genuine. It's very heartfelt. M People that love me don't want to lose me. In fact,
mm,
the day I was diagnosed, my husband, he had not been married before me, so we were in our let's see, I'm 62. Yeah, we were both in our 50s when we got married,
mm,
in this first marriage. In
mm,
his And he said to me at my hospital bed, he's not a crier, but he got very choked up and he said, "I didn't wait this long to find you just to lose you now."
mm,
That was devastating to hear that. Really hard.
mm, mm,
That was important for him to tell me that. And so I think, it's important to have those hard conversations and say those things. I'm getting choked up just thinking about it,
I can see
but
that, yeah.
because it's important. It's not just my experience, although my experience is unique. I'm the one going in for treatment and
Mm,
the one, going through this in the way that I am. But other people are experiencing this, something of a grief as well, and it's
yeah.
important to be open to that and to hear that.
Yeah, and carers are an absolute, core part of who we are. I mean, all the stuff that I like to talk about, there are 3 people in my, the ideal customer avatar, if you like. It's the people who are patients, their carers, and the functional health professionals that are supporting them. So not your general professionals, but functional health professionals that look at a holistic perspective, and I try not to use the word holistic, but, that full range, the mind, the body, the soul, all those
Yeah.
things all together. And that's what I'm about, and a
Yep.
carer. Carers are really underrated, under supported.
Yeah.
Um, I can't even find many carers to actually interview because in terms of what I try to interview a patient, a carer, and a functional health professional at least once a month. I'm struggling to find carers. it really, they just don't talk about it. They don't, they don't express themselves about it. And it's just as hard on the carer in life, like it was with your husband when he was at your bedside. So yeah.
Well, a lot of times people that are carers don't. I know this to be true for my husband. I sometimes have to draw some things out of him because he has said, "Well, I don't want to add to your problems by talking about me, and I don't want to make things worse for you." It's not making it worse for me. Or if somebody brings up, the how hard it is for them, that's not making it worse for me. That
Mm,
actually helps me to understand them better, and and it reminds me that we're having a shared experience, albeit in different ways, of course.
yeah.
But this impacts everybody. Your whole family is impacted by your health. My family is impacted by my health,
Mm,
and it can be a thing of beauty to be open to those hard conversations and not shy away from them because they can be uncomfortable. Um, but again, it's not only what I write about, but how I try to really live my life is really straddling that reality of, hey, sometimes life is really crappy. Sometimes it's really hard. Sometimes it's heartbreaking. But sometimes it's often really beautiful and really, trying to think of more words here. It can just be a really beautiful experience when you let yourself feel all of it. And it's hard to do because it can feel really scary and very vulnerable. But I'm telling you, I have grown as a person and grown spiritually as a result of that. Right? I
mm,
do not fear death. I don't. I have zero fear of that. I used to feel that 2 years ago. I would have said, "Ugh, I don't wanna die. I don't even wanna think about it. That's creepy and, ugh, I don't know." That does not scare me in the slightest bit anymore. Not in the
yeah.
slightest.
No.
Mm.
And going back to your comment about it being hard, this is a comment from Jen Annette who said, "What I've realised is that sometimes I'm just too much for that person at the time."
It
The baggage that comes along with the actual thing.
Yeah. I've had some people that I thought I was close to. I thought we had a close relationship who have disappeared in
Mm,
the 18 months. And at first I was upset about that. My feelings were hurt. Then I was angry. And now I've thought, you know what? Sometimes this is just too much for people.
mm,
And sometimes they just can't handle it. And I'm not going to be critical of them because everybody's walking their own path. And sometimes they've got things going on in their life that they can't handle one more thing. And my diagnosis for them is one more thing. And they
yeah.
just And so sometimes you're gonna lose people along the way because they
Mm,
they can't handle this walk with you,
mm.
and that. I understand that much better now, and I don't view it with anger or with hurt any longer. I used to. I did at first. I'm a human being.
Wait, changing gears a little, when you hear the word thriving, what does that mean for you nowadays?
Thriving. Um,
If anything at all. I mean, it doesn't have to have a meaning to you, but
Good question. I think, it certainly doesn't mean the same as it used to mean to me, because there are things I literally cannot do, anymore. I don't know if I'll ever be able to do some of the things I used to be able to do. Thriving to me means accepting my reality and making the most beautiful life I can make every day. And that can look different every day. But, what am I doing to take care of myself? What am I doing to show up for the people that I love? That's thriving. And you can not be thriving even when you have perfect health. You can be all caught up in your head and not available for people around you and be gloomy and not bringing your best self to your own life, not showing up for yourself, not showing up for other people. So I think that's what thriving means to me is like, how am I showing up in this world? We have finite days on this earth. and in this bag of bones, skin and bones that I've been given for 62 years now. I hope I have it for another 20 years. But how am I showing up in this world has less to do with what I'm able to do physically anymore, because that's really, really changed.
Mm,
And it will change, even more for all of us in our 60s, 70s, and 80s. If that,
yeah.
but you throw in a big hurdle like big wrench that was thrown into my life a couple years ago or a year and a half ago, and it changes further. So I think, how am I showing up in the world? What's the energy that I'm bringing to my relationships, to my own self, first of all, and then to my work?
Mm.
And that's how I'm of service, and that's how I enjoy my life. That's how my life has meaning and purpose. Yeah, that's how I would describe that. Was that too many words?
No, not at all. No, this is your conversation, not mine. Um, Luke has asked you, as you I'm acting as an interpreter here. As you gain more of your physical strength and abilities after breaking your back, what do you hope to do more of?
Oh, travel.
Mm. So
Absolutely.
you traveled recently. You went to a wedding, I think, somewhere.
Catherine's wedding, we all went to, my husband had to stay home because he had some work that he couldn't get away for. And I was a little nervous about traveling all by myself and handling my luggage, because just a few months prior, I was not able to pick up a suitcase.
Yeah,
And so I really had to think about that, but I did it. I got some help along the way, but and I had a lot of people helping me. But I want to travel more. I've always loved traveling, seeing different places, meeting different people, just experiencing cultures. And for me, initially, it might be travel within the U.S. is probably going to be realistic for me. And then as I'm as I get stronger and stronger, I can think about like international travel again. That's really what I'd like to do. Um, so I don't feel like I need to start running. I can't run currently. I'm not crying about that. I hate running anyway, so I don't really care. But my life depended on it. If a bear was chasing me, I'd be done for. I can't run. My back has no flexibility, so there's no
no,
step at all. I can't run. I'm like a stick person running. So it's actually kind of humorous. But I would say travel. I want to have that stamina and that energy and the overall, more vigor in my health, so I can be in a car for longer. I can be
yeah,
for about an hour and a half before I need to get out break. So I can't,
yeah,
like, my son Luke lives 3.5 hours away, so I can't drive up to see Luke. He has to come
mm,
down. I just want to do things like that.
yeah, lovely. And what feels important to know about living with the future being uncertain but certain, and those physical limitations, especially with your back and so on. What feels important?
Um, you know how we talk about through our lives, uh, realizing how little control we have as we get older? I've really realized that, how little control we don't really have control over anything, and that's actually been very freeing. That sounds like kind of terrifying. There's no control. That sounds terrifying. Not to me. What I control is me, my thoughts, my words, my behavior, my actions, my interactions, and that's very freeing to me to let go of all the other trappings that I felt before, the limitations, the worrying about what other people are going to think. I mean, I still do sometimes, of course. Sometimes I write a Substack post and I'm thinking, wonder how this is going to be received, and we all do that, of course. We're all human beings, but by and large, I've kind of shed that old skin, and it feels really great to me. So I like that there are some gifts in this diagnosis, and the uncertainty we've always, even from the moment we're born, we're living with uncertainty. We just don't think we are. We think we we live our lives with this illusion that we have so much more control than what we do. So really nothing has changed. It's just that I've started to realize that nothing has changed. Like I never had that control. I just labored under the illusion that I did. And that causes a lot of grief and a lot of suffering. And you said that a lot of things open up then, so living with that uncertainty is actually, I feel, a gift because now I can determine so many different things. What do I want my life to look like? Let's do it. I might not physically be able to do some of those things, but there are a lot of other things that I can do now that I was afraid to do before, and now I no longer have that fear. So it is it's a good thing, but you have to recognize that it can be a good thing. Again, it goes back to what meaning am I giving this?
Mm,
What meaning am I giving it? And we can ask that at any stage of our life, regardless of our circumstances. And that's what it comes down to me. I Nothing has any meaning except for the meaning I give it.
mm,
And I get to choose that. So that's pretty incredible. I
it
like
is. Yeah. Well, that's fantastic, Jenny. Well, that's a fantastic way to end the conversation, except for the fact that we've had quite an active audience here today. Um, I'll ask one more question, then I'll put it out to the audience. So while I'm asking my question, if anybody wants to have any last questions for Jenny, I'll throw them up. But my question to you, Jenny, is if if you were back at the day of diagnosis, that and doesn't matter which diagnosis, whichever one hit the hardest, if you were back at that day, what would you be saying to yourself back then about the future?
I would tell Jenny from June of 2024, you're afraid right now, and I get that you're afraid, but honestly, trust me, you're going to be okay. You will
Mm,
be okay. It might be a different definition of what you used to think was okay, but it's going to be okay. You, y- all of us are going to die. We all know that. So don't worry about that. I mean, like, don't spend time wringing your hands and being anxious over something you have zero control over. And if you do have control over some things, I do have some control over my health. Obviously, I could be non-compliant with treatment and not taking care of myself, and so I do have some control over this. Um, but it's going to be okay. It's You can be afraid. You're going to be afraid, but you're also going to be okay. Trust me, you are going to be okay. And I'm not sure I would have believed it right in that moment because everything was just absolutely terrifying. But I'm a year and a half later and I'm okay.
mm.
Not falling apart. I've done things that I didn't realize I was capable of. Um, and I've learned things about myself and the world around me that are pretty amazing. So it's okay. I'm okay. I really am okay.
Well, with that, we'll end the session because Cliff has a great perspective. Cliff here says your perspective is golden. So I agree with him 100%. And Catherine also said, "What a wonderful gift." So there's a lot of I mean, this is Valentine's Day on the screen here. There's been hearts flowing all the time. So it's been a wonderful conversation. Thank you to everybody. And I see, in fact, my first session from the Edge guest, Melissa Goff, just joined us recently, and she's actually, if you go back to the recording of the session with her last year, she's got another one of those incredible stories. You just keep moving on and you just keep living life as good as you can do it with the tools that you've got and the
Yep.
situation you're in, and just enjoy it.
Yes. Yes. It's a ride, and sometimes it's hard, but never, ever, ever forget that is also beautiful and can be really, really good in very surprising ways that you have no idea is coming down the pike. So just be open to everything. Be open to it.
That's fantastic. Well, Jenny, thank you very much for your time. It's been a true pleasure.
Thank
And Thank you, everybody, and see you next time on Sessions from the Edge.
Thanks for joining, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.